Hey everybody, welcome to my channel or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Gladys Strickland and I write adventure thrillers under the pen name G.B. Strickland. And today I want to talk a little bit about how I chose some of the settings to put in my book, any of my stories really, but especially my first book, The Stonemason Secret. So I discussed in the video just before this one that the idea for the book came to me one day while I was walking on the beach, and it was based on the topic of my master's degree thesis, which were the medieval minstrel carvings in Beverley Minster. Beverley is a town in East Yorkshire, and they have a minster there. I'll do another video kind of talking about the difference between minster and cathedral and parish church and different things like that. But for this video, I just want to talk about Beverley's Minster because it is not a cathedral, but it is the size of many of the cathedrals in England. It was built during the Middle Ages. Different parts were built at different time periods. You can see that in the architecture, how the decoration of it changes. And it has this two different groups of minstrels playing music. One is a secular group and one is angels and elders, something you would expect to find in a church. Beverley is about 25 miles southeast of York, and many people have heard of York. Many people have visited there, gone and seen the amazing minster that is there. But not a lot of people know about Beverley. Even within England, not a lot of people know about it. So when I got the idea for the book as a way to kind of show off the carvings I'd researched, the church I had spent so much time in, the place I lived in East Yorkshire for a year in the late 1980s. I just wanted people to know about some of the wonderful things in this area. So I start out in Beverley, I start out in the minster, I start out talking about the minstrel carvings. As with many of books in this genre, you don't stay in one place. You go different places, you're looking at different things, you're searching for clues or finding different bits of information to put together. So that was then my next challenge is, where do they go? Where else do they go? And perhaps I could have sent them to France, to some of the amazing churches there. Germany, Italy, Eastern Europe. Perhaps there was even a connection that could be made with the Arabic world or something like that. But what I finally decided I wanted to do was not just stay in England, but stay within East Yorkshire, or mainly East Yorkshire. As I said, they do go to York and the Minster there, and that is not East Yorkshire, that's just Yorkshire. But all the other settings, except one, take place within the general area of East Yorkshire, which is the area where I lived. I drove through, I saw the scenery, I went to many of these villages. That's where it was. The one location that is not within this part is down just outside, further south, outside of Peterborough in Cambridgeshire. And I just needed my character that lives there to be near a university. Cambridge University is nearby. I needed him to be in a different part of England so that my main character had to travel down there to meet with him and talk to him about some things. But then they both go back up to Beverley and go from there. So the other locations I feature in East Yorkshire are the churches in Bainton, that's St. Andrew's Church in Bainton, and the church in Harpham, which is dedicated to St. John of Beverley, of all things. It's St. John of Beverley's Church in Harpham. And then they go to Huggett, which again really isn't East Yorkshire. It's more Yorkshire. It's closer to York, but still it works. And the church there is now known as St. Mary's in Huggett. One other location comes in at the very end of the book. Well, it's mentioned early in the book, and then we go there later in the book. And that is the village I lived in. When I lived there, it was two villages, kind of called a double village. It was Hutton, Cranswick. I lived in Cranswick, just at the southwest corner of the green, the village green in the middle of town, or the middle of the village. And Cranswick and Hutton were connected by a road or a street, but you would actually leave Cranswick and then there would be empty space, and then you would get into Hutton. Now they've pretty much grown together, and I don't know if they're considered two separate villages. I suppose if you say they're in Cranswick, you know which part of Hutton Cranswick they're in. But I had to put this location in my book because I live there, and I have such wonderful memories of living there. So I've placed one of my side characters. He lives in Cranswick. And so early on in the story, we meet him at his home studio. He is a stonemason. We meet him in his home studio, and he talks a little bit about needing to get to Beverly and a few things, not a lot. And then at the end of the book, all of the main characters go back to Cranswick, to his house, for a very important meeting. And that is when we have my main character. She's riding in a car, driving through this village and taking in the view of it. And what she sees is what I saw. I have not been back there since I moved back to the States, which makes me very sad and something I hope to rectify in the next couple of years. But thanks to Google Maps Street View, I am able to go down the street and look at the town and see how things have changed or how they've stayed the same. The village green is still there. The duck pond is still there. The house I lived in is still there, although I think they've done some remodeling on it because it looks a little different, but that's to be expected over nearly 40 years. The train still runs through town, so I have my characters drive over the train tracks and go about their business. Most people aren't going to care about where they are, and that's okay. But I'm hoping a few people may read that and go, where is that? And just get out a map, or get on Google Maps probably, and look it up. The same with the other villages. Not something they might have been aware of, but it's like, hey, this is true over the entire country. Small villages have churches that have stood for hundreds of years. And they often hold these little treasures inside. It could be a tomb. It could be some sort of carving. It could be a font, the baptismal font that's incredibly old, maybe even predating the church. It could be painted walls. It's amazing what is there, these little bits that are still left. So my hope is that if people ever find themselves in this area, maybe they'll go, hey, maybe we should go. There's the turnout for that village I read about in the book. I want to go see what's there. And we'll do that. After I got the idea for the Stonemason Secret and started plotting it, I started coming up with more and more ideas. And it turns out they were all based on focusing on places that I knew about that a lot of people didn't. And it might be the history of the place. It might be a museum that people aren't familiar with. It might be a work of art nobody really talks about unless you're taking a specialized art history class. So that's where I do a lot of my brainstorming and ideas. And even in one of my short stories that's titled The Book, that's set in St. Augustine, which is about an hour and a half north of me. Love to go over there, love to walk around. St. Augustine is fairly well known, so I don't know that there's going to be any surprises in the place, but I do talk about the story rather starts at Flagler College there. A lot of people don't know they've got this amazing college there. And so I have a professor there that's the main character, and we follow him for a couple of hours and the adventures he gets into. I also have a story that I set in Paris because you set things in Paris, and it was all came about as Notre Dame was being reopened a couple of years ago. And I wanted to write a story kind of commemorating that event. And it started out, I was going to focus on Notre Dame, but in doing so, it shifted. The writing shifted it because I decided to write about one of the relics in Notre Dame, which is the crown of thorns. And the crown, and we ended up spending more of the story in Sainte-Chapelle than in Notre Dame, but it was still kind of my way of saying, this is in honor of the restoration after the terrible fire, and let's enjoy scenes from Paris. The ebook of that is exclusive for members of my list, and you can get the sign up in the description below. Join the list, you get the free story to read. I would love it if you would stay on the list, but if you decide that's not your thing, that's cool. Download your story, read it, and enjoy it. So as I'm trying to finish up revisions of the Stonemason Secret, I've already started drafting the next book, which the title right now is The Resurrection Key. And I think I'm going to keep that. And that story is going to start in Dallas, Texas. Many people know about Dallas. I lived in Dallas back in the 1980s. I was a graduate student at Southern Methodist University doing my master's degree in art history. And there was a museum that at the time was located in the building where the art history department was, where my classes were. They have since built an amazing new building on campus that houses the collection. It is awesome. It's the Meadows Museum, and it focuses on Spanish and Hispanic art. Truly a glorious thing. But even people in Dallas don't know it's there. My sister lives in Dallas and didn't know about it. And one of her friends made the comment when I talked about visiting there and what I was doing, and she said, I didn't even know that was there. So I've already given 2 people some information about things that are right in their backyard that they can go visit. And that's what I want to do with all of my stories, give information into history and art and locations that you may not have heard of. I'd love for you to join me on this journey. Please subscribe and hit the bell to get notified when I upload a new video. I'm really trying to get out several videos a week. We will see how this goes, but that's my goal for now. And just join me on this journey of learning new places. And if you know of a place that has some history to it, it has some art attached to it somehow, any of that that's not well known. It could be your hometown, it could be someplace you've lived, it could be where your grandparents were from. If you know anything like that, please leave a comment and share that below, because I am always looking for new ideas. So there's a little bit about how I chose the locations to feature in the Stonemason Secret. Thank you for coming along on this journey. And until next time, take care.